Hello there, good afternoon, or well, good morning actually. We're a little bit earlier than normal, so welcome to this week's episode of We Are Careers. Great to have you all here with us. We've got a really, really exciting episode today, two great guests which we'll kind of come on into in a second, and a very, very topical theme that we're going to be covering. But to kick things off, if you've never watched We Are Careers before, my name is Chris Webb. I'm a higher education careers advisor and a registered career development professional with the CDI. And I'm joined, as always, by my excellent co-host, Meet Sabir. So Sabir, having a good day today?
I am. And are you excited that the football's on tonight? Because I know, Chris, you're a big fan.
I am. It's coming home. So yeah.
I know you said that the last show. So for anybody else who's a football fanatic, fingers crossed. Let's see what happens this evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Meet Sabiha, and I work in 12 countries as an RCDP. And I specialize in working with young people who are looking to transform their career potential. And I'm also the creator of the 4.0 Class Academy, which is all about upskilling international career guidance counselors, which allows them to help them deliver even more powerful career support to their students. Now, each week we like to celebrate and highlight and showcase our newest CDI members. And this week is no different. However, we are putting a little bit of a twist because this week the CDI Shoutout is going to go to the newest members of our CDI Facebook professional community of practice. And I want you all to join me today and give everybody, our newest members, a good, warm welcome. Now, if you're wondering, because you're watching this show on YouTube and you're wondering, hey, I'm not in the CDI Facebook professional community, all you need to do to become a part of this exclusive community is by becoming a member of the CDI. And you can find information of how you can join, and it costs less than an Nando's meal a month on the CDI website. And all of that information will be available in our show resource document. So this week, we have got the following new members joining our Facebook community. So please, if you're watching live or even if you're watching on the replay, drop a clap emoji in the chat box. Let's all give it a warm welcome to Penny Waters, Juliet Martin, Katie Carmichael. And if that name sounds familiar, it will be because she was our guest last week on the previous show. And if you missed that show, you can find the replay on the YouTube channel as well as the Facebook community as well. Then we want to give a warm welcome to Ivana O'Brien, Andrew Lloyd, and Kelly Coles. Now pop into the chat and come and say hello. If you heard your name, please do introduce yourself and let everybody know in the community what area of career guidance you work in. And if you did see a fellow colleague or friend's name in the list, if yes, tag them so that they know that we're celebrating them and we're welcoming them, as some of our newest members. Now, as always, you've got the like button, so if you're enjoying these shows, please do let us know. Your feedback is really important to us. And if you're enjoying all the guests that we've had, and we've got two amazing guests with us today as well, please do let us know. And if you're on YouTube, press the subscribe button and the bell button so that makes sure that you get notifications. Because if you're anything like me, you tend to forget. So it's always good to have these reminders. So I want to head on over to our very first guest, and I want to come to Louise Nicol, who is the founder of Asia Careers Group. So Louise, tell us a little bit about yourself, the work that you do, and what your organisation is all about.
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction, Sabiha and Chris. So Asia Careers Group is based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and our kind of aim and our mission is to support universities to understand what happens to their international students when they go home. So we provide career mapping, data and insight, looking at international graduate outcomes of those students that study overseas. So it could be in Australia, it could be in the UK, US, Canada, and then return home. What do they do with their careers? What part of their university experience do they bring with them? So it's a data and insight business. I call it talent tech, as everything is a tech business now. And yes, so that's what we do here at Asia Careers Group.
I love that, Louise. And, for anyone that knows me, they will know that Malaysia has a really warm place in my heart. So, it is good to know that there are amazing, phenomenal people out there doing the work that you do. Now, say somebody's heard what you're doing, Louise, and they're interested and they want to learn more about the work that you do. Where can people find you on social media? What's the best way that people can connect with you?
I think LinkedIn is probably my best medium. I have sort of 16,000 plus followers, and I provide a lot of content. I'm also regularly, I'm an author in University World News, Wonky, various other higher education press. So I'm around and about the sector, and I think quite a lot of people know me anyway. So yes, but find me on LinkedIn, please, follow, and there'll be lots of really pertinent content going out on there, particularly pertaining to international students and careers.
Excellent. Oh, that's great to know, Louise. So now, Dhruv, how about yourself? I know you're the director and co-founder of Student Circus. So that for anybody that doesn't know what Student Circus is, please do let the viewers know what that is about, and a little bit about what got you into this work in the first place as well, Dhruv.
Sure. So firstly, thank you so much, Chris and Sabia, for inviting me to be a part of this amazing show. So Student Circus is a job search platform for international students studying in the UK. It's a tech business, and as Louise said, I'm happy to share the term talent tech if she's fine with it. And our USP is that we are, I think, the only job search platform that works with universities to kind of support international students in finding jobs in the UK. So the story started with me being an international student myself. So I came 7-8 years back to the UK as an international student from India. And just like most international students, I too had an aspiration of finding the right job in the UK once I finished. So went to classes regularly, got a great grade. However, when it came to job search, and that's when, experience just nosedives, and saw the problem that it wasn't just me who had issues. It was literally all the 102 international students that were there in my class. And decided that, if everyone, that's close to 500,000 international students facing this problem every single year, then it's a big enough market and a big enough problem to be solved. And that's how Student Circus has started. We currently are working with 40 plus universities in the country and supporting more than 50,000 users in the UK to find their jobs.
Excellent. And Dhruv, that sounds phenomenal. And I love the fact that you've used your own personal journey and turned it into a business that's now helping thousands of other young people who are facing the similar types of challenges that you faced as well. So what's your go-to platform, Dhruv? If people are interested, want to learn more about who you are, what you do, what's your go-to platform that people can follow?
Students and careers advisors, they can look at our website, which is studentcircus.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm not sure how many careers advisors are there on Instagram, but if there are, say hi to us. We kind of have seen that, we are on all social media except Snapchat, because I think I'm too old for that. so basically just find us in all these social media and reach out if we can help you in any way.
Excellent. So I love that. Good to know that you're making yourselves available on all social media platforms. And speaking of sort of social media platforms, those of you that are watching live today, come and join us in the comment section. Let us know what kind of work are you doing? Is this topic topical to you? Is this what do you want to hear? Are there any questions that you have for our phenomenal guest today? If so, put them in the comment section. Let us know, because we love always hearing from both our live viewers, but also viewers that watch the show on the playback, because we make a point of coming back and making sure that we engage, and we love that engagement. And so today's theme, Chris, what are we going to be talking about here today?
Yes, thanks, Sabia. So it's, as we said at the top of the show, it's very much a topical theme. So last week, 1st of July, we had the official launch of the government's new graduate immigration route for international students who are looking to kind of live and work in the UK. And one of the reasons we wanted to put this show together was, I think, working with international students and graduates is often seen as something, I think, that's the preserve only really of higher education careers. And that's, I guess, partly true. But I suppose, the wider issues around that is something that some of our kind of career professionals within the sector might not be as aware of. And obviously that's what we're all about when we are careers, wanting to kind of expose people to new topics, new themes you might not have come across in your practice so far. So we're very lucky to have two very knowledgeable guests with us, and a topic that hopefully is going to pique the interest of many of our careers professionals who are watching. So I guess the first thing to start off with is the graduate immigration route itself. It's been around for a while, as I'm sure our guests will kind of say in terms of theory, but last week is when it sort of launched effectively. So Perhaps if we come to you first on this, Louise, if that's okay, for our guests maybe, or our viewers, I should say, who perhaps aren't familiar with this idea of the graduate immigration route and this new visa for international students, what does it look like, and how is it potentially going to have an impact on international students looking to work in the UK?
Yeah, and thanks, Chris. I think so universities have had quite a long time in terms of, it's been over a year since it was announced in, I think it was November 2019, that the graduate route was reinstated. So we had it before, and then it was shelved, and then we've now got it again. So it's something that can come and go, and I think that's the first thing to say is that it isn't necessarily set in stone, and the government, and it will be subject to political whim as and when. So what it entitles all UK graduates from overseas, and the entitlement of 2 years if they're a postgraduate taught or undergraduate student and they hold a degree, and 3 years if you're a PhD. Now, I'm not the best person to talk about the whys and wherefores of the actual visa. I prefer to sort of nod my head to gov.uk for that, because they can tell you all the whys and wherefores. And UKISA is also doing a lot of work in this area, as are the Institute of Student Employers. So there's plenty of information about that. What I would say, however, is that it's important that we learn from what's happened in Australia, who've had the graduate route for a considerable amount of time, where only 17% of students that did end up staying in Australia actually got a graduate level job. So that's less than 1 in 5 students that stayed on in Australia hoping to land a graduate job got one. And with the present economic climate, massive competition this year for job hunters from both domestic and international students, it means that it's going to be tough out there for these international students. And whereas there has been a lot of money invested by the British Council and others in promoting the graduate route, there's been far less invested in career services to support international students into the workforce. So I'll leave it at that for the time being, and pass to Dhruv for his comments. But that's kind of my initial kind of foray into this.
Well, no, thanks, Louise, and Dhruv. We'll come to you in a second. I mean, I think there's a lot to kind of follow up on there, which I know we're going to kind of come back to one of our other questions. I think a really important point around that idea of even the term graduate route, and whether that might be a bit of a misnomer. Dhruv, I know we've kind of had this conversation outside of the show in the sense of, obviously, with the work you've done with Student Circus, operating within the previous kind of restrictions of the Tier 2 skilled worker visa, where there wasn't the graduate route, and now here it is. What are your kind of thoughts leading on from what Louise has just said to us?
So firstly, I think it's amazing. I think that this was a calling from the sector as a whole, because, after the previous route was kind of shut down in 2012, the numbers of international students nosedived. And we all know that international students are really economically and for diversity reasons, culturally really important for universities and in the higher education sector in the UK. So obviously the universities had to compete with, other countries that are providing this sort of a route. And that's why they kind of petitioned the government to kind of bring it on. Now, the government has brought it on, which is great. However, the key thing is the messaging. And I'd like to kind of point out what Louise kind of mentioned about, the spending millions on marketing it, which is correct, which should be the case, because we've seen that the UK has a very robust education system, has a lot of positives, but many a times it's not been marketed well. So it's great that they are marketing this in a great deal, with great force. However, the one thing that with the graduate route that's come in is understanding what are the nitty-gritties of the graduate route. What does it provide? Does it actually provide a route for people to stay in the UK? Yes, it does. Does it provide a job to do in that stay? No, it doesn't. So it's really important for students and universities alike to understand what will be the expectation from students coming in. So the biggest advantage I would say that the graduate route coming in gives students is that it gives them more time to understand the UK's graduate market, get some sort of work experience, whether it's internship, volunteering experience, contract roles, etc., to then use to kind of grow the professional skill set and to take a decision whether they want to stay in the UK further or they want to go back home. Again, it's on them. But the one thing that universities and also the government should be very important in keeping in mind is that the expectations that this sort of marketing campaign is kind of setting, and it's a very thin line there, because a lot of students coming in are being given this sort of a kind of a picture where the graduate route is going to solve all the problems which were there earlier. In fact, it's really important to understand that yes, one of the biggest problems was time, and it does solve that problem. However, there may be a lot of students that still cannot successfully get jobs, or time may not be the cause of concern. It may be that English is not up to the mark. It may be that the skill set is not good, etc. So again, it's a great way to basically keep UK in the hunt as one of the leading destinations in higher education. It's a great boost for universities to get more international students in. But however, just trailing on and just connecting my thoughts to Louise's out here is that Australia also has some sort of a post-study work visa which they've introduced, and if it's not implemented in the correct manner, or if the support is not given in the correct manner, this boon can actually turn into a bane. So we need to be really careful as to how universities kind of adapt to this. We need to be really careful as to what our messaging is, and more importantly, we need to be careful of what students are understanding from our messaging in terms of the graduate immigration route.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm just going to pick up on that, Dhruv. So you've made some really excellent points, and Louise, so did you, in terms of what I hear from both of you is you're optimistic, you're happy that this has been unveiled, but you're also cautious as well regarding what this will look like and how that translates, and making sure there isn't a mismatch of expectations. And that what I hear from both of you is that there's work to be done. And it's not to be done by just one single agency. It's not just on the shoulders of the government or just even the universities. Actually, there's many stakeholders, and each stakeholder has its role to play. And I'm just looking here in the comment section, and we're getting some really great welcomes here. People welcoming our newest members that have joined us today. So thank you, everybody, for joining in. C. Hodgson, thank you for joining in and saying hello. And then we've got Liz from sunny Mulville as well watching us, and we've got a question that's come in as well. Okay, and then I'm going to sort of kind of combine that with one of the other questions that we had that kind of feeds into this, which is a question that's coming from Liz, where she's asking, can I ask a broader question? In the UK, we know that employers value most degrees for the transferable skills that they develop, enabling graduates to have a wide range of work options, regardless of what subject they've studied. How does this translate in international recruitment? So Louise, can I come to you first, and then Dhruv, I'll come to you.
I think that if I'm really honest, what you study is now a lot less important than the skills you acquire on your journey. So I would absolutely recommend for anyone, but be they international or domestic student, to get work experience, be it in a restaurant, be it in your field of study, be it in customer service, whatever it is, because that combined with your studies will make you a more rounded, more employable individual. And when it comes to the job market in Asia, there does tend to be a greater emphasis on technical skills, i.e. you need to be technically proficient. But in the same way as in most UK graduate schemes, international employers recruit across field. So just because you're an engineer, everyone's looking for engineering skills. Just because you're accountant, I sat down with a senior level, someone on the board of Shell the other day, and they employ 1,000 accountants in the UK, in Malaysia, sorry. So even though it's an oil and gas company, they still need 1,000 accountants. So it's very important that students don't just say, oh, well, I'm doing this degree, so I can only apply for these kind of companies, because most companies are recruiting across the board. And when it comes to tech, that's where we see a real increase in hires. But again, tech companies don't just need tech people. They need HR, they need sales, they need business development, they need designers, they need all of these skill streams. So it matters less what you study. I think having transferable skills from other things you've done in your life is crucial. And I would say in Asia, as in the UK, as in anywhere in the world, attitude counts for a great deal. So it's less about what you studied, more about your attitude and the skills you've acquired along your journey to date.
Some really great points, Louise. And honestly, this is what I see time and time again. This is my messaging as a brand. This is what me and my team talk about with our clients, our graduate international clients as well, to say, look, transferable skills, soft skills, and attitude, Louise. Honestly, employers that I speak to sort of like, top Fortune 500 companies, and time again, that concept of attitude is a huge thing. So Dhruv, what's your sort of kind of thoughts on this question that Lisa sent across to us?
I have a little bit of a different take on it, to be honest with you guys. So my take on it is so I come from India, and in India we have a huge emphasis on the university you go to, the skills that you need to do a job depending on what degree you've got. It's very much like that. So our context is that in the UK or in the West, universities and career services design students and they empower students to kind of go and get any job. Their job is to empower students, to give them the skill set to apply for any job. It's degree agnostic. It doesn't depend on what you studied. Whilst in India, the job of universities and career services is to get the student a job. It's not to increase the skill set that much in one way per se. So this is just my personal opinion that I've come across, where in the UK, it's more about the whole experience and everything. It's all about your soft skills. It's all about work experience, doing internships, etc. But in your home countries, or especially when you look at the subcontinent, it's more about getting a great grade. You top your class, you get a better interview prospect. You go to the best university, you get the best companies coming to hire at that university, etc. And that's why rankings play a big part in countries like India and in Southeast Asia compared to the UK. So my take is that with students coming from these countries, they come with the mindset when they come to the UK. So they come with the mindset that, okay, if I get into a top university, I am going to get the job. My job is done, or my job is to get the best grade. Whereas in the UK, employers are looking more for, okay, you might not be the top individual in your class, but if you've done an internship or done 2 internships, it gives you an edge. So that fundamentally drives a lot of international students to miss out on the right opportunities, because they feel they've done their bit. They feel they've got into a good university. They feel they've topped their class and it's done. But they don't have the skills to do a good interview. They don't have interpersonal skills, etc. And this is fundamentally causing a lot of students, especially from Southeast Asia, to basically kind of come and then realize at the end of the degree that, oh no, we should have actually done internships, which could have added, some weight to our CV, etc. So this is our perspective, and obviously,
it's a really good point, Dhruv, and it's one that links really nicely onto kind of our final question, actually, which we'll kind of come on to in a second. But I think just sort of linking back to both your points, there's a really good comment from Richard Hewitt at EMSI where he mentions about employers being, maybe degree agnostic, but not skills agnostic. So you need to have something. So I think that point about, it's all in good saying, that yes, your degree doesn't necessarily matter, but those experiences, as you said, Louise, whatever they might be, will kind of help give students something, whether home or international students. Is really important for all of us to remember. Dhruv, I know that you've got to leave a little bit early from today's session. So I think if we kind of move straight onto our final question and kind of bring that directly back to you and then on to Louise afterwards, if that's okay. This actually fits very well with the question that actually one of our viewers has sort of put in the chat anyway. And that's let's talk about career services. So, we mentioned here that universities are certainly doing work already around kind of supporting international students in terms of careers advice and guidance. There's a range of resources and support available, as Louise has mentioned. So Kaiser, you've got Institute of Student Employers, you've even got within AGCAS, the internationalization sort of working group. So a lot of that support is there, and I guess that, the research and resources are there. But I suppose the big question is, do you feel it's enough at present for international students?
In my humble opinion, it's never enough. If you think that you've reached the end, then you'll stop. So that's no point saying that it's enough. In fact, I respect all the work that everyone's doing. Everyone's putting in the extra hours to do all of that, which is amazing. But if it was enough, then we would have a great employment rate. We would have student satisfaction levels going through the roof. The reason why we're facing issues is fundamentally international students are great on cost perspective. They bring in more cash. They kind of, they support the whole economic activity at the university, which is amazing. However, it's not mandatory to get international student outcomes. And because it's not mandatory to get international student outcomes, budgets are not given for activities to do the same. And, just to kind of point out, when we talk with a lot of career services, and one of the things they say, budgets are always tight. And we always understand that, budgets are going to be tight. You're not going to have infinite amount of money to do everything. However, it's the kind of focus area. So, one of the things is that because universities don't get kind of marked or ranked on the international student outcomes, they tend to basically ignore that, or they don't tend to give enough a budget as they would like. Secondly, maybe there has to be, maybe they're doing everything right. Obviously there are a lot of universities, obviously I won't take names for good or bad or anything like that, but there are a lot of universities that are doing extremely well, and we see that, they're going out of their way. However, there's always thought of, getting out of the box solutions. And, one of the out of the box solution has to be that, you have to have different departments working with each other. Managing expectations is key. You cannot have the recruitment department kind of selling the GIR as this amazing route to get a job and stay in the UK, whilst not having the support to kind of give that on the back end. That's one of the things. So I think it has the messaging has to be in sync. The career services has to be funded. I think getting more money in the career services is more important, because now, especially with the pandemic, people are going to university. There's an article in the Times which said that a lot of even British students are doing their masters because they don't want to get into the job market, which is really bad. So this is a kind of a master's which is not done out of choice, but out of compulsion. And in this case, the reason why they're doing this is because they want to get a better job. The end result for everyone, whether that's local, whether that's EU, whether that's international, is to get a better job. And if that is the fundamental thing that is not being hit, then that means there's a lot of change that needs to come in. I think, working with a lot of, we're working with a lot of universities, so I know a lot of them are very open in that sense. But obviously, there are a lot of new age, softwares, technologies coming in. It's not just mine or Louise's technology, etc. But I think the experience that we come from is we've worked with so many universities. We have a 360-degree view, and we're happy to share that view for the betterment of the sector. And especially for me, I can say that from my personal opinion, if I got a job, I wouldn't have started Student Circus.
Yeah.
The primary aim was to get a job. Yeah. And I realized this because I realized it's a problem that a lot of students face. A lot of students come from backgrounds where they cannot even afford to start a company. You come from a privileged background, you have people supporting you, and then you can start your own enterprise. But I know a lot of students who've taken a lot of loans to come in, who kind of go back home really unsatisfied. So there has to be some sort of research which needs to be done. In fact, don't do research. We already know research. I think it's time to basically put a lot of things into action, and you have to involve a lot of the private sector into this and work hand in hand. You cannot basically think that you can do it by yourself. So I think it has to be a collaborative effort in intra-university and inter-sector as well.
Absolutely, Dhruv. And I know that we might lose you in a second, because I know that you've got another meeting to go. Thank you. We do lose you rather. But this is a great time to, I think, bring this straight back to Louise. A lot of the stuff there, I know I can see you nodding. Thanks, Dhruv.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Nodding along with there, Louise. So I think perfect time to kind of, for the final word, I guess, on this from sort of your perspective, slightly, as you said, outside the UK market as well.
Yeah, well, just in the UK context, just so that everyone's aware, that marketing is funded 10 times more than career services are. So at the moment, universities are allocating 10 times more funding to getting students in the door than they are to their transition to the workforce at the end. Now, this is going to change because I think governments, it's already happening in Australia, but universities will be funded on their graduate outcomes. And I think it's really crucial what Dhruv said earlier on in the conversation, that we need to start holding universities accountable through metrics for their international as well as their domestic student outcomes. So that's my one thing to say. And finally, I mean, Dhruv's great, and I agree with pretty much everything he has to say. I wrote way back in 2019 that we need what I would call an international outcomes department within a university, which is literally a marriage from the international office, the careers service, and the alumni office, all together focused on showcasing successful international student outcomes, but also managing expectations and doing all the things that we've been discussing this session. It's a three-way split. It's the international office bringing the students in, but working closely with the careers advisors, the other end, and the alumni to continue that relationship. So I mean, it's been a really great session. I'd love to do another one with Dhruv. He's great, and you guys. So lots more to say, but not enough time to do it. So I'll hand back over to you.
Well, we always find ourselves in that position, Louise, and I think it's some really good points there. As you say, that this is really the start of the conversation. We're hoping that viewers and members who perhaps are less familiar with this type of area of careers work can kind of take this a little bit further afterwards by connecting with yourself and with Dhruv. And again, if you're watching this and you're on the Facebook community of practice, our show resources document, which we'll be uploading shortly after the show, will have all of those details in there about how to connect with Louise and Dhruv. And I think, as you said, it's been a really, really interesting topic. It's so hard to kind of fit everything in. And I think, both Sabir and I obviously have personal experience in this area through working with international students and graduates. And again, for all the kind of talk, as you've said, of sort of metrics and data, which is often included in these type of conversations, obviously, we have to remember the value that international students and graduates offer to the UK, as people. And I think that sort of sometimes we do almost get into this idea of running a bit of a deficit model of, how can we make things better from where they are, rather than this idea that actually there's a huge amount of value that international students, graduates are already adding. How can we really emphasize that? So some fantastic talking points there. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, again, share with us any kind of questions, comments in the chat. We can kind of pass those on, and all of the resources that we've been talking about will appear in our show resources doc. But Louise, thank you very much for joining us. You're welcome to stay for the next sort of 5 minutes of the show. But if we do lose you, thanks very much. And Sabir, anything to kind of just add on final thoughts there before we move on to the news?
I mean, honestly, this is a subject that I'm so passionate about, because I do this work day in, day out. And I've got so many case studies, testimonials, both from the perspective of educators as well as employers and, sort of the students themselves, the international graduates themselves. And, and I think Louise and Dhruv both perfectly said this, that this is a conversation that all stakeholders need to be sort of involved in, but also held accountable to. And, and Dhruv said this, and Louise, you've touched upon this as well. It's about, we sell a dream, don't we, to, encourage and attract. And, and your point, Louise, about the fact that, 10 times more is spent on marketing, attracting these students to, whether it's, domestic or international students, to the various, educators, whether it's in Malaysia, Southeast Asia, including the UK and Australia. Yet we don't do that same level of investment when it comes to making sure that these young people, all, international students that have come and invested. I mean, I live in a university town, and you feel it, and I felt it when COVID came, and, a lot of the students either didn't return or were sort of, kept in lockdown, and you felt it. And I was talking to small business owners in the area, and they were saying how much their business had suffered because of the lack of sort of international students. And obviously we're seeing now a bit of normality coming back in, and I know a lot of sort of businesses in our area are hoping that come September they're going to go back, there's going to be some kind of normality. So that's just even sort of from the high street perspective of the value that students bring. That's then not going on to all the additional value that international graduates and sort of workers bring to the UK, sort of Australia and other places as well. We could talk about this all day. I know I definitely could. I know that I'm seeing lots of comments from our viewers right now, talking about both Louise and Dhruv responses closer, Dhruv responses closer to the situation than I have experienced with international clients and their parents. I'm very interested to hear, 2 points, both the points that you're giving. That's a great point. So many people who are watching right now are saying, one person's just said, Louise, to your comment, that's outrageous, Louise. That's outrageous about, 10 times more. And, one Facebook viewer is saying, really good to hear about funding shifts. Now, as always, if you're part of our Facebook community, you'll be getting access to the resources document where you'll get all the information. And I know that Louise and Dhruv have included some extra bonuses for you, some signpostings to some research and some data that you can, geek out on. So that will be made available. And those of you that are watching on Facebook, of course, come and join us in the Facebook group where you can access all of these additional show resources. And so I just want to wrap up today now talking about what my 3 top highlights are for the CDI news. And I'm going to run through them really quickly. So number 1 for this week, what is my highlight? Okay, so are you a private practitioner within the CDI membership? If you are, right now, there is a survey that has been sent out to collate your thoughts about the peer support meetings that take place, their function and the value that you are receiving as a member. And if you're a private practitioner and you're thinking, hey, I didn't know there was this peer support meetings, well, guess what? Coming up later this month on Wednesday, the 28th of July at 7:30 p.m., there will be the next meeting. It's an informal, supportive and safe space for private practitioner coaches and advisors to discuss issues that might be affecting them in their private practice. And the link for the Survey Monkey, literally, I did it this week. It took me less than 5 minutes to complete. But the insights that you provide as a private practitioner will help inform and steer and make a decision about how and what type of support we as private practitioners are given. So please do, if you've got 5 minutes, please do take that time to give your feedback and input. We also have, jointly organised by the University of Derby and the CDI, the 4th conference designed to support the learning, information sharing and professional development of careers leaders who are working in schools, FE and SEND schools and colleges, enterprise coordinators and careers advisors, is happening this Thursday and Friday. There's still time to book your place if you haven't already. So again, links for that information you can find on the CDI website, but also it will be made available on the resources document. And then finally, we talked about this in our last week's show, which was around neurodiversity, and the CDI have now developed a series of workshops. The next one that's going to be coming up, which is all around supporting clients in school, colleges and SEND schools, is taking place on the 7th and 8th of September. That's Tuesday and Wednesday. It's a full day virtual, and it's looking at developing reflective practice with people who have a health condition, impairment or special educational needs. Now, again, all of this information, it's part of the CDI Academy. There is a whole host, honestly. Go and take a look at the website and the Academy program. There is a whole host of sort of one day, as well as a series of workshops that you can do to help add value to your existing practice and upskill yourself as a career practitioner. So that's me done for the CDI news for this week. Chris, what are you going to be highlighting for non-CDI news that's happening in our sector at the moment?
Brilliant, thanks, Sabir. Yeah, so just kind of 3 sort of quick ones from me, and starting off actually with an extra bonus kind of related to what we've been talking about today, and was kind of alluded to by Louise. So that's the Institute of Student Employers have a guide basically for employers in terms of recruiting and kind of hiring international graduates. Quite a useful resource to get started on if you're not familiar, or if you're acting in kind of an advocacy or a brokerage role, with any international students and graduates and working with employers. So we'll make sure that's in the show resources document as well. We've got 3 other kind of sort of key bits of news that I think it's worth sort of highlighting. One is the article in TES that many of our members may have seen this week about Jan Ellis, our ex-chief executive at the CDI, and the work that A, she's been doing throughout her life, and sort of B, the new work she's doing with Kudos in terms of setting up the 160 careers hubs across the country. So that's really worth having a read of. And there's also an interesting article about the recent 4-day working week pilot in Iceland and some of the research that's come out of that. Certainly there's going to be one in Spain as well that's taking place at the moment, and we're hearing about other kind of countries who are looking to maybe sort of pilot or kind of adopt this idea the 4-day working week as well. So bit of traction coming. It's getting quite a lot of sort of buzz through sort of channels like LinkedIn and Twitter. Whether anything comes of it in countries like the UK, for example, remains to be seen. But I think it's useful research to kind of keep an eye on. And then finally, just something for members to keep an eye on is also the new sort of parent perspective. So it's a new careers podcast, which is all about looking at different ways to kind of support parents and students with understanding kind of careers education, development. And the first episode is a bit of an introduction, featuring Not Going to Uni's Connor Cotton and Anna Morrison from Amazing Apprenticeships, and Steve Keith, who's done a lot of great work in the career space, is sort of behind that as well. So do take a look at those, all on the show resources doc. But that brings us really, really nicely to the end of this week's show. And we're going to be back again on Wednesday, the 21st of July, at the usual time of midday. More information about that episode will be kind of forthcoming on social media over the next couple of weeks. So all that really remains to be said is thanks so much, Louise, for joining us today.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank
Brilliant.
you, guys.
Thanks so much to Dhruv, who's obviously left us, and Sabir, thanks very much to yourself as well for being a great co-host as always.
Thank you. It's a pleasure as always. And thank you, of course, to our viewers who watch us, who invest their time. We've just got a comment coming through finally saying, thank you very much, Louise, Dhruv, Chris and Sabir. Very interesting and important topics covered today. And great to have the links, which will be in the resources document. And we're getting lots of thank yous as well. So as always, we will see you next time where we're going to have Mo Isap as our guest. So till then, everybody, take care and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.